Welcome back to Question Period. All right, he wants to unite the right in Alberta, where there's now an NDP government that has brought in a price on carbon, but is also building pipelines. What is his vision for the future of conservatism? Joining us now, Alberta PC candidate Jason Kenney is our special guest, and of course, Joyce and Craig are still here on the scrum as always. Jason, look, you're a former immigration minister, and it's great to see you back in Ottawa, by the way, off the campaign trail. Former immigration minister, you're looking at, as all of us are, the Trump position, trying to bring back the ban on 7 mostly Muslim countries. You're seeing in the federal conservative race, Kelly Leach and her so-called values test. How is this playing out? How does this define conservatism for you?
Well, for me, I don't think Donald Trump defines conservatism in any way. I think he's a populist who used to be a liberal Democrat. And I think there's a danger that some of what he's doing will cause brand contamination for conservatism in the United States, which is why I'll leave that to my American friends and colleagues to deal with. Look, here in Canada, the conservative tradition has always been one of openness to newcomers. Brian Mulroney increased immigration levels substantially over those of Pierre Trudeau. Stephen Harper increased levels over those of Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin. The history of the Conservative Party electing the first black MP, Lincoln Alexander, the first Muslim MP, Raheem Jaffer, the first Hindu MP, Deepak Oberoi. We're the only center-right party in the world to win a higher share of votes amongst immigrants than native-born citizens.
And yet the Islamophobia motion has split. Kelly Leach has been running on that. What's your message to conservatives as they gathered at the Manning Conference this weekend?
My message is we've got to continue to be a party that's based on opportunity. And the reason why newcomers choose Canada is to achieve their dreams, economic freedom. They come from typically statist and socialist and often corrupt economies. They want economic freedom. That's what we conservatives stand for. Let's ensure that our core message is one of economic opportunity.
Craig, you're listening to that. I mean, this is about the battle of what it means to be a conservative in the country.
Well, it does, but it means more than that. I mean, he's talking about the conservative history of being openness to newcomers, which we all respect and admire. And I think in many ways it's a Canadian history, although I don't think we should ever think that there's not a limit to the tolerance of Canadians. We have never really been tested. And now we're getting something of a test.
We had a massacre in Quebec at a
Yes,
mosque.
we did. And now we're being tested by all of these people walking in. If you saw on the American networks the pictures they're seeing, sitting in Trump's seat, you're seeing people just kind of wandering into Canada, helter-skelter, through the woods, across culverts, and be welcomed with open arms. And Trump is saying, according to the readout of his conversation with the Prime Minister, we're worried on the subject of the border, we're worried about terrorism from foreign sources. We're worried about that, Prime Minister. That's my guess of what he must have said to him.
Well, and just, Joyce, when you think about that, because there was that phone call earlier in the week between Trump and Trudeau comes out and says, yeah, we talked about border issues. Trump says we talked about terrorism issues, and we're all looking at this issue of the asylum seekers. They're crossing the border in Manitoba. They're crossing the border in Quebec, and people are saying what to do about it. Does that, for Canada, become a problem and maybe a security problem vis-a-vis Trump?
Well, I don't think it's becoming a problem yet for Trump. By the way, people crossing the border into Canada, the couple of hundred crossing into Canada, is nothing compared to the millions that have crossed from the southern border into the States. So the Americans are quite used to seeing this. Porous borders is the story of their lives, on both sides, north and south, first off. And I don't think that our experience is anywhere close to the American experience. There's not the fear and the kind of anger that existed in the States since 9/11 and then built over the years about immigration, about jobs fleeing the country, about new technology, about so many things. We cannot really draw such a huge parallel between the two because we're not there yet.
It's a trickle now, I agree. It could become a flood, and it's the perception. It's the perception, again, of a porous border, which is going to hurt trade. And I'd like to hear Jason, who many over the years said was the best immigration minister in Canadian history. That was a line many of us heard. What do you think of all of these people coming in? They're illegals, however desperate they may be, and they're also queue jumpers.
Well, first of all, I think it is a challenge because the only way you maintain public confidence for a generous immigration system is if the system is characterized by fair rules that are consistently applied. The reason why you have lost public support for legal immigration in the United States and Europe is because of large-scale illegal migration and human smuggling. So I've always tried to achieve that balance. Unfortunately, I think some of what Donald Trump has done has created a false dichotomy, a false choice between the kind of utopian idea of open borders and a kind of xenophobic reaction to my immigration. What we need is a balance. Thomas Friedman, the New York Times liberal columnist, says that the ideal immigration system has a tall wall but a broad gate. You need both. You need rules, you need a queue.
So what about this safe third country agreement? As a former immigration minister, you know, and just so folks understand, we signed this deal with the U.S., came into effect, I think, 2005. So if someone tries to come in and they enter at a border, they're turned away. But if they cross the border, Craig, and we saw those pictures, they're not just accepted in, they're taken in, but they go into the queue.
They're not in a legal position.
It's a loophole. Should we suspend the safe third country agreement?
We should not suspend it. We should seek to eliminate those exemptions, in my view. That the agreement was negotiated between the Chrétien government, then Immigration Minister Denis Coderre, and the United States after 9/11, when a certain amount of concern or even hysteria occurred in certain communities in the United States. They started, thousands of people were showing up at the Peace Bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, and it was overwhelming our asylum system. So Canada and the United States came up with an agreement that said, if you are seeking protection, you have to do it you have to avail yourself of protection in the country where you are. And the United States has a fair, just, independent asylum system. It's not run by Donald Trump. It's run by the independent American judiciary, the same judiciary that struck down his executive orders. Unfortunately, the exemption in the agreement to which you refer is incentivizing people coming in illegally and dangerously. We want regular, safe, legal migration, not unsafe, illegal migration.
And the question will be, obviously, one of deterrence and enforcement. All right, I want to have one more question. Joyce, I'll start with you on this one. And it's the question of defining. We've talked about issues like immigration for the Conservative Party. They're debating it either in the U.S., at the Conservative Political Action Committee, where Trump and Bannon all spoke at the Manning Center here in Ottawa. One of the questions is social issues defining conservatism. Kevin O'Leary was on the program earlier, and he said the only way to get young people to vote Conservative is to be basically open on reproductive choices, on transgender issues, all those issues. You've just got to stay clear, and you basically are in line with the Liberals on that. That's how you get the young vote. Is that the future for conservatism? What does that do to social conservatives?
Well, I don't know what it does to social conservatives, but if conservatives want to win the next election, they've got to think a bigger strategy, and the bigger strategy is beating the Liberals at their own game. They have a majority, and the way to do it is, yes, be socially more liberal, because that's the new generation. You want to get them in. That's how the Liberals got the young people in, who are disenchanted now. So if it depends if it is an election strategy. I would definitely go for that.
Jason,
yes,
I mean, that's interesting. Like, social conservatives say, don't do that. Do you have to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal to get young people to vote conservative, or is that not?
Well, any conservative coalition has to be a coalition. It has to be open and tolerant to a range of views, obviously excluding extreme or hateful views, but you're going to have a different range of views on a number of questions. That's how the Stephen Harper coalition worked pretty successfully. We didn't lose office in 2015 over any hot-button social issues. We lost because we were past our best before date. I think it was the tone of the government. We seem to be going out of our way to make enemies rather than friends. But we need a broad, a big tent, sensible free enterprise coalition, I think, which was the Harper government at its best.
Right. All right. Last word to you, Craig.
Well, I think the party that has been so successful over the years, it wasn't the Liberals, was the Progressive Conservative Party. And to me, that's the way the Conservatives need to go. They need to, unfortunately, I don't know where the right in the party is going to go elsewhere. They'll still support a Progressive Conservative Party, I believe that. So move to the left of center, and I believe you can beat the Liberals.
That's good. Okay, I got 10 seconds.
Craig wants us to follow the Joe Clark, Bob Stanfield electoral triumphs.
I don't know if he's catching that football, but I mean that.
Well, what about the Brian Mulroney triumph?
But that's going to be your challenge, right? What if you win and you can unite the right? What does it look like?
I don't call it unite the right, because I don't think most people define themselves on that spectrum. I call it Uniting Free Enterprise Albertans, the same kind of coalition Brad Wall has in Saskatchewan, Christy Clark has in BC, and Peter Lougheed and Ralph Klein had in Alberta.
I gotta leave it there. Interesting. Jason Kenney, welcome back to Ottawa. Good to see you. He's always on the campaign trail in Alberta. That is Jason Kenney. And of course, Joyce Napier and Craig Oliver. And I'm Evan Solomon. That does it for Question Period this week. We will be back in 7 days. Remember, you can tweet us at CTVQP. Talk to you in 7.